If you are listening to this, perhaps a long day has just come to an end. The familiar sounds of Earth are slowly settling down, and somewhere within you there is a very faint wish to step away from everything just for a moment. Tonight, imagine that you are leaving the ground. No traffic noise, no schedules, only a quiet vastness opening before you. Space travel, it sounds distant, dangerous. Yet it is also the place where human beings realize how small they truly are. And strangely enough, that realization brings a very unusual sense of relaxation. Welcome to Stories for Sleep. This is a place where we do not rush to understand. We do not need to remember. We simply listen quietly to stories that help the mind slow down and allow the body to rest. In this video, we will gently explore together the most calming truths about space travel from the human body, in a state of weightlessness, to the absolute silence between the stars, and finally to the fragile yet precious sleep that you are experiencing right now. There is nothing you need to do. Just breathe slowly and let the story carry you gradually away from Earth. There are nights when even though the body lies still, the mind continues to wander, refusing to rest. Scattered thoughts, vague anxieties, a feeling of being trapped inside a narrow space called daily life. Carl Gustav Jung once said that human beings are not tired because of work, but because they carry too many things that remain unexamined. We carry invisible fears, the fear of being forgotten, the fear of meaninglessness, the fear that our small existence leaves no trace in the vastness of the universe. And because of this, sometimes the mind needs to be taken away from Earth. Space travel, it may sound distant and dangerous, but on a deeper psychological level, it is an ancient symbol. A journey away from the familiar ego into infinite silence, where there is no judgment, no love or hatred, only pure existence. In space, no one cares whether you succeed or fail. There is no social noise, no schedules, no expectations. And it is precisely this indifference of the universe that brings a strange sense of safety to the human soul. This video was not created for you to gain knowledge, not to memorize numbers or scientific facts. It exists so your mind can drift like an astronaut, releasing their body in a state of weightlessness. Together we will explore the gentlest truths about space travel, how the human body changes when it leaves Earth, the absolute silence beyond the atmosphere, and sleep, a simple biological act that can only exist fully on this planet. According to Jung, when human beings contemplate vastness, the ego becomes smaller, and when the ego becomes smaller, anxiety softens. If tonight you feel too heavy, allow yourself to leave the ground for a moment. There is no need to travel far. Just listen, and let the universe, through its silence, lull you into sleep. Part 1. Leaving Earth. Entering a zone that does not belong to life. There is a very simple truth that humans often avoid facing directly. Space is not meant for humans. Not because the universe is hostile, not because it is cruel, but because it simply does not care. The moment we leave Earth, everything that once supported life begins to disappear layer by layer, silently, without warning. Air, the thing we breathe without ever thanking, is gone. Gravity, the invisible force that quietly holds our bones, our blood, our heartbeat in place, lets go. Sound, proof that the world responds to us, vanishes. Life, as we understand it, stops. The universe does not push humans away. It does not reach out to welcome them. It makes no gesture at all. And it is precisely this that unsettles us. Carl Gustav Jung believed that humanity's deepest fear is not death, but meaninglessness. The fear that one's existence is not seen, not answered, not acknowledged by any greater consciousness. Psychologically speaking, Earth is a mother. It responds to every action we take. We step, the ground supports us. We breathe, air fills our lungs. We call out, sound echoes back. In the collective unconscious, Earth is a place that gives answers. Space is not. Space is where there is no dialogue, no echo, no sign that we are being heard. So when the narrative begins with the sentence, "Space is not meant for humans," it is not merely a scientific fact, but a powerful psychological statement. It places the listener in a state where I am not the center. I am not favored. I was not designed for this place. And paradoxically, this is deeply sleep-inducing. Because much of human exhaustion comes from the need to always be the center, always be right, always be important, always have meaning. Space strips all of that away. In space, no one asks who you are. No one judges success or failure. No one demands that you become anything. Jung called this the moment when the ego is made smaller, and when the ego shrinks, the nervous system begins to relax. Humans go into space not because space invites them, but because there is an ancient force within us, a longing to touch something beyond ourselves. In Jungian symbolism, leaving Earth is equivalent to leaving the familiar ego and entering the deep unconscious, a place without moral light, without social structures, without ready-made answers. It is the journey of the hero, not the hero who conquers, but the hero who accepts their own fragility. Space does not need humans, but humans need space to understand this, that simply being alive on Earth is already a miracle. When the narrative emphasizes that the universe does not care whether we live or die, it is not pessimistic. On the contrary, it is an antidote to the obsession with control. Many people cannot sleep because their minds are still trying to control the future, trying to make sure everything will be fine, trying to assign meaning to every small detail. Space does none of this. It does not guarantee, it does not promise, it does not deceive. It simply exists. And when humans face a reality that does not respond, the mind, if it does not resist, naturally lets go. Like staring at the night sky for a long time until at some point thoughts slow down, inner language dissolves, and only the sensation of existing remains. This is the ideal pre-sleep state. Thus, part 1 of the script performs a very subtle task. It does not frighten. It does not stimulate. It does not shock. It simply says, you are small. You are fragile. And that is okay. In Jungian therapy, feeling small is not a wound, but a return to the right position. Only when the ego stops inflating can the soul truly rest. Space, with its absolute coldness, accidentally becomes a teacher of sleep. It teaches us that we do not need to strain ourselves to deserve existence. We do not need to leave a mark on the universe. We do not need to be acknowledged by it. We only need to breathe, to lie still, to sleep on a planet where life fits so perfectly that it feels almost obvious. And when listeners enter part 1, they are not only hearing about the universe, they are being gently relieved of deeply human psychological burdens. That is why this opening is so important for content meant to be heard before sleep. It does not stimulate curiosity in the sense of keep watching to find out. Instead, it awakens a different kind of curiosity about silence. And when humans become curious about silence, sleep is no longer something to be forced. It arrives on its own. Once we accept that the universe does not care, another, quieter question begins to emerge. If space does not need us, does this body truly belong there? Part 1 ends in the silence of the universe, a silence that is not hostile, not hiding, not responding. But immediately after that moment when humans truly enter space, the silence is no longer only outside. It begins to seep into the body itself. Space does not need to attack humans. It only needs to stop supporting them. And that is enough. Carl Jung once wrote, "The body is the shadow of the soul. The soul and death, 1,934 inches. Jung's view, the body is not merely biological, but the place where the unconscious remembers our deepest relationship with the world. And when that relationship is severed, when Earth is no longer beneath our feet, the body begins to speak, not with words, but through disruption." Part 2. Space and the human body, a biological conflict. The human body was not born to fly. It was born to stand. Millions of years of evolution have written this truth into every cell. Bones were forged to bear downward. Pull muscles were designed to resist gravity. Blood was trained to flow back toward the heart. The brain was programmed with a very clear concept: up and down. Earth is not merely the place where we live. It is a biological partner. And when that partner disappears, the body begins to feel confused. In space, bones begin to disappear. Not because of disease, not because of aging, but because there is no longer a reason for them to exist as they once did. Bones need force in order to know they matter. When that force is gone, the body understands very quickly we do not need to carry this much bone anymore, and it begins to let go. Muscles follow the same path. No need to support, no need to balance, no need to push against the ground. They waste away without protest, like a quiet admission. I was made for Earth, not for this place. Jung once emphasized that the unconscious does not speak in moral language. It speaks through function. The unconscious is not moral or immoral, it is simply natural. Psychology and Religion, 1938. The body in space behaves in the same way. It does not complain, it does not accuse, it does not resist. It simply adapts by retreating. The spine lengthens, as if searching for a force it can no longer feel. Blood rushes toward the head, because there is no longer a down to flow toward. The face swells, the legs grow thin, the heart works less and gradually becomes weaker. This is not a design flaw. It is the truth the body is living in a world that was never meant for it. In Jungian therapy, when a person lives too long in an environment that does not align with their true nature, the body is the first to respond. Fatigue, insomnia, disorientation, changes in appetite, a feeling of not being in the right place. Astronauts call this space sickness, but psychologically it is the loss of existential grounding. The body no longer knows where it stands in the world. No up or down, no before or after, no natural night or day, and sleep, the most ancient biological behavior, becomes something that must be engineered rather than something that happens on its own. Jung wrote, "Man's natural fear is not death, but disorientation, symbols of transformation." 1912 space does not kill humans immediately. It simply disorients them. And when disorientation lasts long enough, the mind begins to dissolve into strange dreams. Emotions rise without reason. Sleepiness comes at the wrong hours, and nights pass without sleep. Even as the body is exhausted, taste changes, smell fades, food becomes bland. Not because the food is poor, but because the body is saying, I no longer recognize this world. In depth psychology, the loss of taste and smell is a sign of detachment from familiar reality. Just as in mild depression, the food is still there, but the flavor is gone. In this sense, space is not merely a biological laboratory. It is a magnifying mirror for a truth we often forget. The body is not a machine that can be placed anywhere. It carries the memory of Earth. It remembers gravity. It remembers the day-night cycle. It remembers the ground beneath the feet. It remembers the feeling of being supported. And when all of this disappears, the body does not rebel. It simply stops functioning properly. Once again, this has a deeply soothing effect on the listener, because many people on Earth are living in spaces that are not meant for them, jobs that oppose their nature, relationships that no longer support them, rhythms of life that contradict natural biology. Their bodies too are losing bone, losing muscle, losing sleep in a symbolic sense. When listeners realize that even astronauts among the most elite of humans cannot force their bodies to adapt perfectly to space, a gentle relief appears. Perhaps I am not weak. Perhaps I am simply in the wrong environment. Jung called this moment a reconciliation with one's nature. What you resist persists. What you accept transforms. Commonly cited from the Jungian spirit. Thus, part 2 is not only about biology. It whispers a very gentle message. Your body is not betraying you. It is simply being honest. And when night comes, when you lie down on a planet that still has gravity, still has air, still has a familiar light cycle, your body, however tired, is still in the place it was born for. That alone is enough to allow you to let go. No need to fix anything. No need to understand everything. Just sleep. After the body begins to unravel in space, after bones release their load muscles, forget how to support after sleep no longer arrives naturally as instinct, a slow truth reveals itself. Human beings cannot survive on willpower alone. Space makes this unmistakably clear, but it does not stop at disrupting the body. It reveals something deeper. Human life on Earth was never self-sustaining. We are used to breathing without thinking, drinking water without gratitude, lying down without fear that the body might boil from lack of pressure. Only when we leave Earth do we understand that life is a supported structure. And when that natural structure is gone, humans are forced to build an artificial Earth, fragile, trembling, yet full of determination. Part 3. The artificial survival suit, air, water, pressure. Nothing is taken for granted in space. Air is no longer something that surrounds you. It becomes an engineered product. Every oxygen molecule must be created. Every breath must be calculated. Every exhalation must be collected, filtered, and returned to you in a form that can sustain life. In space, you breathe your own breath again and again. And strangely, this is not horrifying. It simply makes humans more humble. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "Modern man does not see God because he does not look low enough." Psychology and Religion, 1,938 inches. Space humans are forced to look downward to air filtration systems, to screws and pipes, to the truth that life does not sustain itself through belief. It requires structure. Water follows the same rule. On Earth, water flows. In space, water floats. There are no rivers, no rain, no drops falling to the ground. Every drop of water is the result of a closed cycle: sweat, vapor, condensation, filtration, drinking, urine processing, purification, drinking. There is no new water, only water that is forgiven and reborn. From a Jungian perspective, this is an extraordinarily powerful symbol. In depth psychology, water always represents the unconscious. And in space, humans survive by repeatedly entering their own unconscious, cleaning it and returning it to consciousness in a form that can be tolerated. Jung wrote, "The unconscious can make a fool of you in no time." The archetypes and the collective unconscious, 1,959. Inside a spacecraft, if you disregard the unconscious, disregard the filtration systems, disregard what is discarded, you do not die from thirst. You die from refusing to face the cycle of life. And then there is pressure. Pressure is something we have never felt. Yet without it, blood begins to boil. Liquids evaporate inside the body. The human body was never designed for a vacuum. So the spacecraft must force space to resemble Earth as closely as possible. Space is deceived with pressure. The body is lulled by simulated conditions. A spacecraft, in essence, is a psychological cocoon. It creates the illusion you are still at home. Jung once said, "Man cannot stand a meaningless life." Modern Man in Search of a Soul, 1,933. If air, water, and pressure are not kept stable, not only does biology collapse, meaning collapses as well. Thus, the spacecraft is not merely a machine. It is a symbol of a deep psychological need. Humans need an environment where life is preserved, not constantly challenged. And when you hear this before sleep, a very gentle layer of safety emerges. Because unlike an astronaut, you do not need air filters to breathe tonight. You do not need recycled water to drink. You do not need artificial pressure to keep your body from falling apart. Earth is doing all of that for you silently, freely, without asking you to remember. And because of this, part 3 does not create tension. It soothes. It reminds the mind you are being supported. Carl Jung called this state regression in the service of the ego a safe return so the ego can rest. You do not need to control the air. You do not need to control the water. You do not need to control the pressure. You only need to lie down. We have seen a fragile truth. Humans can survive in space only by carrying Earth inside a machine. Air must be created. Water must be reborn. Pressure must be held steady, like a constant lullaby for the body. Yet even the spacecraft that miniature Earth is still not where humans truly face space. Because there is another moment, deeper, quieter, closer to the truth. The moment humans step outside the vessel, then there are no thick metal walls, no large systems holding everything together, only a thin layer of artificial skin embracing the human body. That is when the spacesuit appears. Part 4. The spacesuit and the spacewalk. The spacesuit, the human being's final artificial skin. The astronaut's suit, when seen from a distance, looks like a symbol of strength, thick, bulky, high-tech. But if you look long enough and deeply enough, you begin to realize it is not armor. It is the final layer of skin. A skin that is not biological, yet carries every survival function that Earth once quietly provided for humans. Pressure so blood does not boil. Oxygen so the brain does not shut down. Temperature so cells do not freeze or burn. Shielding so radiation does not pass straight into DNA. Just one small tear, just one very minor failure. That is enough for everything to end. Life in that moment is no longer something taken for granted. It becomes an extremely fragile balance. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "Life is a tenuous flicker between two eternities, memories, dreams, reflections." The spacesuit is the most literal image of this sentence. A flicker, a faint glimmer held between the infinities of vacuum and death. In Jungian psychoanalysis, the layer through which humans meet the world is called the persona. Persona is not falsehood. It is a necessary intermediary layer between a fragile ego and a world that is too vast. Jung wrote, "The persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself, as well as others, think one is." 2 essays on analytical psychology. Seen symbolically, the spacesuit is persona in its most extreme form. There is no society left to perform for, no other eyes watching, no professional identity or social role. There is only one purpose: to keep life from leaking out. Persona in daily life helps us adapt to society. The spacesuit helps humans adapt to absolute indifference. It does not make you stronger. It only prevents you from disappearing. And this creates a very particular emotional tone for the listener before sleep. Because on a deeper level, we all wear such suits every day. Invisible ones, emotional defenses, stabilizing routines, psychological structures that keep us from falling apart under the pressure of modern life. Jung once said, "Man needs difficulties. They are necessary for health." Modern man in search of a soul. But he also understood clearly, not every difficulty should be faced without protection. Some realities without a mediating layer would shatter the human psyche. Space is one of them. That is why the spacesuit is not a symbol of conquest. It is a symbol of humility. It admits this truth: humans do not belong here, and they can exist here only for a very brief time, entirely dependent on the absolute support of technology. When an astronaut stands outside in space, everything slows down. No sound, no wind, no scent. Only breathing, amplified directly inside the helmet. That breath does not disperse into the world. It is contained, filtered, returned, a closed loop. Jung once described the encounter with the deep unconscious as a form of necessary isolation. Solitude is for me a fount of healing, which makes my life worth living. Letters, Volume 1. A spacewalk is absolute isolation. not to escape other people, but to face a place without people. And in that moment, the spacesuit does more than keep the body alive. It keeps the ego from dissolving into nothingness. This is where part 4 begins to move from biology into depth psychology. In part 4a, we stand only at the threshold, seeing the spacesuit as skin, as a final persona. In part 4b, we step outside wearing that suit, face the indifferent void directly, and see the shadow appear most clearly among the stars. Spacewalk, when humans face the indifferent void directly. There is a very particular moment in the journey of space travel. Not the rocket launch, not leaving orbit, but the moment the spacecraft door opens. At that instant, space does not rush in. It does not attack. It simply is there, an absolute presence of nothingness. The astronaut steps outside, connected to the ship by thin tethers and to life by a fragile spacesuit. That is all. No wind, no sound of the world, only one's own breathing echoing clearly inside the helmet. Carl Gustav Jung once described the encounter with the deep unconscious in terms strikingly close to this experience. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Alchemical studies. Symbolically, a spacewalk is not a step into light. It is a step into absolute darkness. The void out there is not evil. It has no intention, no desire to harm. It simply does not contain humans. And it is precisely this absence that brings the shadow into sharp relief. In Jungian psychology, the shadow is not only what is bad. It is everything the ego cannot control, cannot name, cannot make the world respond to. Space is the shadow on a cosmic scale. It does not answer. It does not confirm. It does not respond to emotion. You are afraid, it does not comfort you. You are awed, it does not reply. You pray, it remains silent. Jung wrote, "The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality." Aeon. In a spacewalk, the human ego is challenged at its roots. There is no society to reflect it, no role to cling to, no other to confirm existence. Only bare awareness, floating in an environment that does not need it. And strangely, most astronauts do not panic. They slow down. They move less. They speak less. Because when one faces the shadow long enough, the ego either collapses or becomes smaller. Jung once said, "Where wisdom reigns, there is no conflict between thinking and feeling." Psychological types. In space, there is no room for complex inner conflict. Everything is reduced to minimal functions. Breathe, move slowly, stay connected, do not make mistakes. Life becomes so simple that the mind no longer has enough fuel for wandering anxiety. And this is precisely where the spacewalk becomes a profoundly sleep-inducing experience. Because many people on Earth cannot sleep due to mental overload stimuli, roles, expectations, and social noise. In a spacewalk, all of that is stripped away. Space does not ask who you are. It does not care what you think of yourself. It does not preserve your personal story. Jung called this state ego decentering, when the ego is no longer the center of experience. And when the ego steps out of the center, the nervous system begins to enter deep rest. Astronauts say that when looking down at Earth from space, the feeling is not excitement, but silence. A very strange silence. Not empty, but complete. Jung described a similar feeling when humans touch the depths of the collective unconscious. In the unconscious, all those things are found which have been rejected by consciousness. The archetypes and the collective unconscious. A spacewalk is the moment humans are forced to accept that they are not the center of the universe. And that realization is not dangerous. On the contrary, it is liberating. When there is no need to maintain an image, no need to perform a role, no need to prove one's existence, the mind is finally allowed to rest. That is why, despite being technically extremely dangerous, a spacewalk carries a deeply meditative quality. Slow movement, steady breathing, awareness anchored in the present. like someone gradually sinking into deep sleep as every story in the mind softly dissolves. And in that moment, the shadow is no longer frightening. It becomes a space wide enough for the ego to be gently set down. Persona fragility and the art of rest. After the spacewalk ends, the astronaut returns to the spacecraft, not in cheers, not in triumph, but in a long, extended silence. The hatch closes. Space is sealed outside. Air floods the cabin. Sound returns, but the human being has not entirely returned yet, because some experiences once touched leave a deep imprint on the psyche. Carl Gustav Jung wrote, "There are experiences which are not communicable. One must go through them alone. Memories, dreams, reflections. A spacewalk is such an experience. Not because it is dangerous, but because it strips away illusions. The illusion that humans can stand without environmental support. The belief that personal strength can replace biological suitability. And most importantly, the idea that fragility is a flaw. In space, a tiny tear in the suit is enough to end everything. No second chances. No later corrections. No justifications. Life exists in an extremely thin state. And paradoxically, when humans truly realize this, the mind relaxes. Because when everything is fragile, there is no room for unnecessary complexity. Jung once said something simple, yet profoundly heavy. "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." Collected works, paraphrased from Jungian thought. In a spacewalk, the astronaut does not become anything. They do not build a new image. They do not expand identity. They simply choose not to disappear. And that choice, repeated in silence, slowly becomes a meditative state. In Jungian depth psychology, when persona no longer strains and shadow is no longer rejected, a third state emerges: reconciliation. Persona, the spacesuit, is no longer a mask. It becomes a temporary home. Shadow, the indifferent void, is no longer an enemy. It becomes a vast context in which the ego is placed at its proper size. And in that state, humans can rest. This matters deeply for those listening before sleep, because many people are tired not from doing too much, but from holding themselves together in a world that constantly stretches them, maintaining an image, maintaining a role, maintaining competence, maintaining control. But like a spacesuit, every persona has limits. Jung wrote, "The acceptance of oneself is the essence of the whole moral problem and the epitome of a whole outlook on life. The archetypes and the collective unconscious, accepting fragility is not giving up. It is putting the burden down." When astronauts return to the cabin, they remove their helmets very slowly. Not because they are tired, but because the psyche needs time to return to a world with sound, gravity, and response. Just like you, as you prepare to sleep, sleep does not arrive by force. It comes when the nervous system realizes, "I am safe." Part 4 closes here, not to praise bravery, but to whisper a gentler message. You do not need to be strong all the time. You do not need to stand in the void to prove anything. Being where you were born is enough. Carl Jung once wrote in a rarely quoted line, "Rest belongs to the work." Letters, Volume 2. Rest is not a reward after effort. It is part of a healthy life. And tonight you do not need a spacesuit to exist. No thick persona, no extreme defenses. You are on Earth. There is air, there is pressure, there is gravity supporting every cell. You can let go. Space is not here. The indifferent void is not here. There is only the bed, the breath, and sleep drawing very near. When humans return inside the spacecraft after facing the indifferent void, the spacesuit is removed. The persona is set down. Breathing returns to its familiar rhythm. But even though the body is safe, the outside world no longer feels the same. Because when humans leave Earth long enough, not only the body changes, the way the world behaves changes as well. Things once familiar, light, darkness, fire, matter, begin to act differently. Not violently, but coldly, and precisely. And that is where Part 5 opens a world where perception is no longer indulged, where the mind must relearn how to see, how to feel, and how to exist. Part 5. Light, fire, and strange physics. Light and darkness, when perception loses its anchor. On Earth, light is a gentle thing. The sun is warm. Darkness is soft. Human eyes are nurtured to adapt to the slow transition between day and night. But in space, light no longer nurtures. It becomes exposed. The sun appears white to the point of colorlessness. No yellow, no orange, no softness. Just raw energy with no atmosphere left to soften it. This light does not ask whether you are ready. It simply shines. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "The sight of the sun makes everybody talkative." Psychological types on Earth, this is true. Light activates society, action, ego. But in space, light does not make humans more talkative. It makes them silent. Because light there is no longer a signal of life, but a reminder that this world was not designed for your perception. And then there is darkness. Space has no night in the familiar sense, no moonlight reflecting, no scattered glow in the air, only absolute darkness. A darkness that does not conceal, not ambiguous, not moving. It does not threaten, but it does not comfort either. In Jungian psychology, darkness is always a sensitive symbol, but Jung emphasized that darkness is not synonymous with evil. He wrote, "Darkness is not evil. It is simply the absence of light." Collected Works, Volume 9. Darkness, in space, is the same. It has no intention, no story, no symbolic depth to interpret. It simply lacks light. And it is precisely this absence of meaning that slows the human mind. Because much of human anxiety comes from assigning excessive meaning to unclear signals. In the absolute darkness of space, there are no ambiguous signals to interpret. No, maybe. No, what if. Only presence. Jung once said something essential about this kind of experience. Silence is the sleep that nourishes wisdom. Letters, Volume 1. Raw light and absolute darkness together create a very particular state. Perception is no longer pulled into interpretation. And when perception stops interpreting, the mind begins to let go. This is why, although space light may be biologically dangerous, psychologically, it carries a deeply sleep-inducing quality. Not soothing through gentleness, but through cold clarity. Nothing to guess, nothing to infer. Only light or none. Thus, Part 5a does not aim to describe cosmic grandeur. It performs something subtler. It removes the ambiguity the ego usually clings to. And when the ego has nothing left to hold on to, it naturally rests. In Part 5b, we move deeper into fire and strange physics, where humanity's most ancient instincts no longer function as they do on Earth. And the mind is forced to learn a new way of existing, slower, with less control. Fire and strange physics, when instinct no longer leads. If light and darkness in space shake how humans see the world, then fire, the oldest element of civilization, shakes how humans trust their own instincts. On Earth, fire is a familiar being. It has direction. It has shape. It rises upward, as if it always knows where it should go. Since ancient times, humans have learned to read fire, its color, its height, its sound. Fire became a central symbol in the human psyche, both destruction and warmth, both danger and home. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "Fire is the most living of all elements." Psychology and alchemy. But in space, fire no longer lives in that way. There is no gravity to pull flames upward, no convection to sustain familiar shapes, no up or down to choose from. Fire burns as a blue sphere floating silent, sustaining itself in a form so perfect that it feels alien. For the human mind, this is a gentle but profound shock, because when fire loses its familiar form, the brain quietly realizes a truth. The instincts we believe are natural are in fact habits learned on Earth. They are not universal truths. Jung called this moment a fracture in assumed reality. He wrote, "Man does not perceive reality as it is, but as he is. Modern man in search of a soul fire in space is not wrong. It is simply no longer compatible with our perceptual structure, and when perception loses, its anchor instinct loses confidence, and the mind begins to slow down. Space thus becomes a very unusual classroom. No one teaches, no one corrects. There is no right or wrong, only consequences. Metal behaves similarly. On Earth, two pieces of metal touching remain separate objects, but in a vacuum without a thin layer of oxygen between them, they can cold weld, bonding together through contact alone. No sparks, no heat, no sound, only silent union. For the Jungian mind, this is a subtle metaphor, because the human ego often believes itself to be separate and independent. But when layers of psychological air, roles, identities, social expectations are removed, the ego can attach tightly to whatever it touches. Jung once warned, "Where love rules, there is no will to power." Collected Works, Volume 7 inches, Space Physics, does not seek dominance. It simply follows its deepest structure. And when humans are forced to live within that structure, the will to control grows tired. This is crucial for sleep, because insomnia does not come from a lack of fatigue, but from excess control. The brain is accustomed to predicting, adjusting, guarding. But in a world where fire no longer obeys instinct, metal no longer behaves properly, light is no longer gentle, the mind realizes a truth as light as breath. Some systems do not require our understanding to function, and we do not need control to be safe. Jung called this state a healthy surrender of the ego. He wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Alchemical studies. Strange fire in space does not need to be fully understood. It only needs to be witnessed. And when the mind shifts from understanding to witnessing, it enters a state very close to deep sleep. In Part 5c, we descend to the deepest layer of this section, where inverted physical laws become a lullaby, and humans relearn how to exist, not through willpower, but through quiet trust. When inverted laws become a silent lullaby, when light is so, no longer gentle, when fire no longer follows, instinct when metal bonds. Silently, humans finally realize something subtle. It is not the universe that is strange. It is Earth that was unusually familiar. What we call natural laws are in truth stable agreements between humans and a very special planet. Beyond Earth, physics has no obligation to be gentle, no commitment that light must warm, no promise that fire must rise. The universe simply operates. And within that indifferent operation, a strange sensation arises in the listener's mind relief. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "The acceptance of oneself is the essence of the whole moral problem, and the epitome of a whole outlook on life." 2 essays on analytical psychology. But before accepting oneself, one must learn to accept a reality that does not cater to desire. Space teaches this not through words but through experience. Light too intense to gaze at, darkness too deep to orient within, fire too perfectly round to read emotion from. And when the senses lose control, the mind begins to release. This moment closely resembles the edge of sleep. The brain stops analyzing, stops comparing, stops trying to grasp reality. Jung called this the ego retreating into the background. He wrote, "The ego is not master in its own house. The structure and dynamics of the psyche. In space, this becomes obvious. The ego cannot control light, cannot reshape fire, cannot persuade physics to be more forgiving, and so it grows tired. It lets go. When it lets go, another order emerges. Not the order of control, but the order of trust. Astronauts do not survive by fighting the universe, but by understanding just enough to avoid unnecessary interference. Deep sleepers are the same. You do not sleep by forcing sleep. You sleep when you stop trying. Strange physics in space thus becomes a perfect lullaby. It whispers to the mind, not everything needs to be explained, not everything needs to be predicted, and not everything needs you awake. Jung once wrote a line perfectly suited to this moment. In all chaos, there is a cosmos in all disorder, a secret order, the archetypes and the collective unconscious. The universe is not chaotic. Its order simply was never meant for human comfort. And when you accept that your body follows, shoulders soften, jaw loosens, breath slows. Just as fire in space needs no direction, sleep needs no effort. It arrives when you stop searching for it. In the next section, we enter part 6, Sound, Scent and Strange Sensations, where the silence of the universe begins to pulse like a steady lullaby. Not loud, not demanding, just enough to let you drift a little deeper. On bed, part 6, Sound, Scent and Strange Sensations, when the universe does not speak, but the mind begins to listen. After familiar physical laws dissolve in sharp light and directionless flames, something more delicate begins to emerge. Not what we see, but what we feel. At that moment, the universe is not loud, nor is it completely silent. It simply does not speak in ways we are used to hearing. And within this non-speaking, another door opens the door to senses usually hidden beneath the noise of earthly life. If light and physics earlier forced the ego to relinquish control, then sound, scent, and sensation in space do something deeper. They dissolve the mind's demand for clear meaning. This is a crucial transition, not only in space travel, but in the journey into sleep. Space has no sound, but humans do. Physically, space is a vacuum, no air, no medium for sound waves, so there is no sound. No wind, no collisions, no explosions. Yet paradoxically, when humans enter space, they have never heard more. Inside spacecraft, there is always noise. Fans circulating oxygen, air filtration systems, water pumps, electronic equipment, a constant background hum that never turns off. Astronauts often say that after a while, they no longer hear the machines. The sound becomes part of consciousness itself, like distant rain or a fan turning slowly at night. And here, Jung enters the conversation. He wrote, "What we do not make conscious appears in our lives as fate." Aeon. When background sound is no longer consciously analyzed, it becomes a psychologically safe space. Like when you lie down in bed and the familiar nighttime sounds, a distant car, a slow fan, a house settling, are no longer named, only present. In that moment, the mind withdraws from the surface and prepares for sleep. The scent of space, when memory speaks. Space has no air, so, in theory, no scent. Yet astronauts returning from spacewalks describe remarkably similar smells. Burnt metal, electricity, hot iron, sometimes like grilled meat, sometimes like gunpowder. This is not the smell of the universe, but of high-energy particles clinging to the suit, revealed only when returning to an oxygen-rich environment. But the significance is not chemical. Smell is the sense most tightly bound to memory and the unconscious. Jung viewed memory not as data, but as living images in the depths of the psyche. He wrote, "The unconscious is not just evil by nature, it is also the source of the highest good." Psychology and religion. An unfamiliar scent in space, belonging to no known earthly context, can awaken a primal feeling, curiosity, alertness, and loneliness. Like the smell of a strange room at night. Not dangerous, but enough to remind you that you are outside the familiar. And this nameless sensation, unexplained, uninterpreted, draws the mind deeper. When water and tears no longer behave, in space liquids do not fall. They drift. They gather into spheres. They cling to surfaces like living beings. A drop of water can float for minutes. A tear does not run down the cheek but gathers into a round form, embracing the corner of the eye. Astronauts describe crying in space as an intimate and strange experience. There is no familiar movement to release emotion, no falling motion to end it. Emotion remains. Jung understood this deeply. He wrote, "Emotion is the chief source of all becoming conscious." Psychological types. When emotion cannot be released in familiar ways, it must be felt rather than expelled. This may sound uncomfortable, yet it closely resembles the moment before sleep. When you lie still, do nothing, do not react, do not flee thoughts. Emotion does not disappear, it simply slows, and when slow enough it dissolves into consciousness like warm water. A foreign universe, yet deeply human sensation steady, hums, strange metallic scents, liquids behaving unexpectedly. All of this makes space both unfamiliar and strangely intimate. Not familiar because it resembles Earth, but because it touches very primal layers of the psyche. Layers that do not need language, do not need explanation, do not need purpose. Jung called this the symbolic layer, where experience does not need to be understood, only accompanied. And this is where sleep begins. Not when you understand everything, but when you stop trying to. In the next section we enter Part 7, Psychology Beyond the Atmosphere, where space no longer only alters the body, but reshapes consciousness itself, blurring the boundary between inside and outside, between the ego and the world. Part 7, Psychology Beyond the Atmosphere. When up and down dissolve, the ego begins to quiet. After familiar senses have been rendered unfamiliar, when sound no longer has a source, scent no longer has a context, and emotion no longer has an outlet, the human mind enters a more subtle phase. Not fear, not excitement, but existential disorientation. In space there is no up and no down, no ground to stand on, no sky to look toward. The body may adapt, but the mind hesitates longer, because from birth human consciousness has been built upon a very simple assumption: there is a direction in which one can stand firmly. Carl Gustav Jung emphasized that consciousness does not exist independently. It is always bound to the symbolic environment in which humans live. He wrote, "Consciousness is first and foremost a product of perception, the archetypes, and the collective unconscious. When that environment dissolves, when fixed orientation disappears, consciousness begins to retreat, and the unconscious steps forward." Disorientation is not merely a physical phenomenon. Astronauts often describe their first days in space as confusing, disorienting, unsettling, not because of danger, but because the brain no longer receives familiar signals. The inner ear, the organ of balance, no longer receives information about gravity. The eyes see the body floating freely. The muscles are no longer required to hold posture. Three systems that once worked in harmony now send conflicting messages. The result is not only space sickness, but a deeper sensation. Where am I in this world? Jung referred to this state as a temporary dissolution of the persona. The persona, the psychological mask that helps us locate ourselves in society, always requires a familiar context in order to function. When the context changes, the persona weakens. And when the persona weakens, the mind begins to turn inward. Isolation when the outer world no longer responds. Beyond the atmosphere, there is no nature responding to human emotion, no wind to console, no birdsong to affirm life. No natural day-night cycle to soothe biological rhythm. Everything is artificial, switched on, switched off, programmed. This isolation is not the same as loneliness on Earth. It is deeper, quieter, and without a clear object to blame. Jung once wrote a crucial sentence: "Loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself." Memories, dreams, reflections. In space, humans are isolated not only socially but symbolically. There is no longer confirmation that the world is still there. And within this prolonged silence, the mind begins to converse with itself. San, emotions intensify because there is nowhere to disperse them. On Earth, we disperse emotion through movement, through sound, through rhythm. In space, there is no such dispersal. A small emotion can spread very slowly, but very deeply. A sudden memory can linger for hours. An unfinished thought can return again and again. Jung described this as the activation of the personal unconscious when the covering layer of everyday life is removed. He wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Collected works, in space there is little left to call fate. There is only the self and the inner world. And strangely, this mirrors exactly the moment before sleep, when the lights go out, when the phone is no longer in your hand, when the outer world stops calling your name. What remains are not grand thoughts, but very small movements of the mind. The overview effect, and the moment the ego grows smaller. As the first days of disorientation pass, as the body learns to float without panic, as the mind stops searching for up and down, another moment appears. Not loudly, not dramatically, but for many astronauts, it is a moment that changes them forever. It usually arrives quietly, when they look out the window, not during a task, not while taking photographs, but in an empty second, a second of doing nothing. And there Earth appears, not as a nation, not as a map, not as a place of identity, but as a complete living being, small, blue, fragile, floating within infinite blackness. Psychologists and astronauts call this phenomenon the overview effect. But through the lens of Carl Gustav Jung, this is not merely a perceptual effect. It is a symbolic moment. When the ego is no longer at the center, on Earth, human, consciousness is accustomed to standing at the center of experience. We see the world from the ground. Everything revolves around here. But in space, here disappears. And when Earth is seen from afar, consciousness confronts a truth. Ancient and deeply Jungian humans are not the center of the universe. Jung wrote, "The ego is only the center of consciousness, not of the total personality." Ayan, the overview effect is the moment the ego naturally becomes smaller, not through force, but because it no longer has a reason to inflate. No borders to defend, no flags to identify with, no us and them, only one planet and vast emptiness around it. Earth as a living archetype. Through a Jungian lens, Earth is no longer a physical object. It becomes the archetype of the mother, the archetype of the container, the holder of life. And this archetype, according to Jung, awakens very primal emotions: humility, gratitude, and a very gentle sadness. Many astronauts have described feeling the urge to cry when seeing Earth. Not from homesickness in the ordinary sense, but because for the first time they see home from the outside. Jung once wrote an essential sentence: "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Alchemical studies the overview effect is precisely the moment when the darkness of the universe makes the light of Earth visible, not radiant, but worth protecting. The gentle dissolution of identity. After this experience, many astronauts say they no longer see the world as they once did. Not because they become detached, but because they cling less. They identify less with roles, with titles, with conflicts. Jung called this process a small step in individuation. Not becoming higher, but becoming more correctly placed. The ego does not disappear, but it learns to step back. And once again, this closely resembles the moment before sleep, when you no longer need to be anyone. No longer need to prove anything, no longer need to control the world. You simply exist. The overview effect and the sleep of consciousness before. Falling asleep, consciousness undergoes a similar process. The ego softens, boundaries blur, the outer world recedes. Large thoughts give way to spacious sensation. Outer space and inner space begin to mirror one another. Jung wrote, "In all chaos there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order." Psychological reflections. The overview effect does not create a new order. It simply reveals the order that was already there. And when that order is felt, the mind no longer needs to cling. It can rest. Space, death, and the strange calm of the mind. After seeing Earth from the outside, after the ego has shrunk enough to stop obscuring the whole, a quiet shift begins. Not immediately, not dramatically, no sudden realization. Just a very subtle change in how the mind relates to existence. Many astronauts say that after returning to Earth, they live as before. They work, they converse, they face familiar worries. But one thing is different. They no longer fear in the same way. Not because they become numb, not because survival instinct disappears, but fear, especially fear of endings, no longer occupies the center of consciousness. Carl Gustav Jung wrote in his later years, "Death is psychologically as important as birth, and like it is an integral part of life. The soul and death space does not teach humans to disregard death. It simply places death in its proper proportion. When you have seen how fragile life is, within infinite emptiness, you no longer need to fight it with tension. You only need to live fully within what is given. When fear dissolves, sleep draws near. Many people cannot sleep, not because they think too much, but because the ego does not dare to let go. Let go of control. Let go of vigilance. Let go of the story. If I do not hold tightly, everything will collapse. Space quietly demonstrates the opposite. The universe does not require human control to continue operating. The sun still burns. Planets still turn. Earth still holds life with astonishing precision. Jung wrote, "The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble." Modern man in search of a soul, he did not say this to inspire despair, but to allow humans to stop trying to solve everything before resting. Sleep is an act of trust. Trust that the body knows what to do. Trust that consciousness can retreat without the world collapsing. Consciousness withdraws like a planet at night. Before, sleep consciousness experiences its own quiet overview effect. Inner space expands. Small thoughts lose their sharpness. Large worries no longer have the energy to maintain their shape. You do not disappear. You are simply no longer at the center of everything. Jung called this the natural preparation for the unconscious to emerge. He wrote, "The unconscious is not a thing, it is a process. Collected work sleep does not arrive like a sudden switch off. It arrives like a gentle withdrawal of light. And in that moment you do not need to know who you are. You do not need to remember today. You do not need to think about tomorrow. Just as Earth, when seen from afar, loses its details and becomes only a calm, complete sphere, space offers no answers. And that is the gift many expect. That when humans step into space, they will find great answers. But what space offers is something else. Comfort in the absence of answers. Jung once wrote softly, "The pendulum of the mind oscillates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong." Psychological types, space does not choose meaning or meaninglessness. It simply is. And when you allow yourself to be with that lack of meaning, the mind stops struggling. Sleep does not need philosophy. It does not need to understand the universe. It does not need to understand itself. It needs only one thing: that you stop resisting the downward drift, returning very close within the breath. Part 7 closes not with a conclusion, but with a feeling. The feeling that you do not need to travel into space to experience the shrinking of the ego. You only need to lie still, breathe slowly, and allow consciousness to step back slightly. Like an astronaut who, after seeing Earth from afar, can return and live very normally, space does not turn them into someone else. It simply helps them stop straining to become someone. And tonight, you do not need to become anyone at all. Just let Earth continue to turn. Let the universe remain silent, and let sleep arrive in its most natural way. Part 8. radiation, microorganisms, and invisible dangers. Beyond Earth's magnetic field, the universe is not darker, not louder, not more violent in the way we might expect. It is simply less protective. Earth's magnetic field, something humans rarely think about, is an invisible umbrella, an embrace that cannot be felt. Day and night it quietly bends, slows, and deflects deadly streams of energy from deep space. When humans leave that embrace, they are not attacked, they are merely exposed. Cosmic radiation has no smell, no sound, no color. It passes through metal, through cells, through DNA without asking permission. And it is precisely this silence that makes it one of the most frightening enemies. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "What we do not see controls us." Paraphrased from Jungian thought consistent with the undiscovered self. In space, radiation is the perfect physical image of what Jung described in psychology. The most dangerous things are not those that shock, but those that pass through us without being recognized. When DNA is touched without the awareness knowing cosmic, radiation can break strands of DNA. Not immediately, not loudly, not painfully, just a small change, a very slight error, but accumulated over time. The human body has repair mechanisms, but they are not perfect. In Jungian psychology, this becomes a profound metaphor. Jung did not see psychological trauma only as sudden shocks. He emphasized micro-injuries, things that go unnoticed yet repeated long enough shape an entire life. He wrote, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents." Psychology of the unconscious. Not because parents are malicious, but because what is not made conscious is always transmitted in silence. Radiation in space is the same. It is not evil. It has no intention. It simply exists. And when humans lack sufficient shielding, they must face a truth. Life is fragile, not only because of accidents, but because of invisible currents. Flashes in the eyes when danger passes through awareness. Many astronauts describe a strange phenomenon. When they close their eyes in space, they still see flashes of light. Not dreams, not imagination. These are cosmic rays passing through the eyeball or the brain, triggering the sensation of light. You see, without a light source. Jung once said something strikingly fitting. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Collected works flashes in the eyes are an experience that reveals how perception is not always trustworthy. There are forces that affect us without passing through conscious awareness. When this is realized, the ego becomes less confident, but also less tense, because the illusion dissolves. If I stay alert enough, I will be able to control everything. Invisible fear and the sleep of humanity. Many fears that keep people awake do not come from anything specific, not loud noises, not frightening images, but a sensation. Something is wrong, but I cannot name it. Cosmic radiation does not allow humans to name it through the senses, only through abstract knowledge. And paradoxically, this draws the mind into a state very similar to sleep, because when the senses can no longer stand guard, the ego is forced to hand over control. Jung wrote, "The unconscious can make a fool of the ego." Letters, he did not see this as a flaw. He saw it as a necessary balance. When the ego no longer has to stay on watch, the nervous system begins to rest. Part 9. Technology. Facing the universe from a distance. Spacefaring technology looks magnificent. Layered metals, fault-tolerant computers, backup systems stacked upon backups. But from the inside, its nature is remarkably humble. Space technology does not say, "We are stronger than the universe." It says, "We know where we are weak." Radiation shields do not block everything. Layered materials only reduce risk. They do not eliminate it. Fault-tolerant computers merely buy time. Extreme testing procedures only reduce the probability of error. None of this is absolute. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote an essential line about humanity's proper attitude toward reality. The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. Modern man in search of a soul space technology is the same. There is no perfect solution. Only solutions good enough to survive in an environment that was never meant for us. And this is the most important psychological turning point of Part 9. Space travel is no longer a myth of conquest. In the early era of space history, humans spoke often of conquest, conquering the sky, conquering orbit, conquering the moon. But the farther we go, the more that language fades. In its place appears a quieter language, the language of risk management. Carl Gustav Jung warned about the illusion of conquest. Man imagines that he has discovered the world, but he has only discovered his own projections. Collected works. The universe is not an opponent to defeat. It does not react. It does not negotiate. It does not retreat. Technology therefore ceases to be a weapon. It becomes a humble instrument of adjustment, not to win, only to avoid immediate loss. Fault-tolerant computers and the lesson of the wreck, non-omnipotent ego. Computers aboard spacecraft are designed to accept error. They do not assume every calculation is correct. They assume error is inevitable. And therefore every critical decision is cross-checked. Every data stream is duplicated. Every system has an exit path. From a Jungian perspective, this is a crucial evolution of the modern ego. The ego no longer believes, if I am intelligent enough, I will not fail. It accepts instead. Error is part of the structure of existence. Jung wrote, error is just as important a condition of life as truth. Psychological types. Space technology does not try to eliminate error. It lives alongside error consciously. And this carries a psychological quality very similar to sleep, underwater training. When the body learns to let go. Astronauts train in vast pools of water, not to become stronger, but to gradually become familiar with helplessness. In water, every movement is slow. Every force is partially neutralized. There is no immediate response. The body must learn not to tense. Carl Jung wrote, tension of opposites is the engine that drives psychic energy. 2 essays on analytical psychology. But if tension is prolonged, psychic energy is exhausted. Underwater training teaches the body to shift from control to adaptation. Just like when you lie down to sleep, if you try to hold the correct posture, the body will not rest. It rests only when you allow it to find balance on its own. Technology as an invisible embrace. Seen more deeply, the entire system of space technology resembles an artificial embrace. Not tightening, not enclosing completely, just enough to remind humans you are not drifting alone in this void. Jung once wrote, the meeting of 2 personalities is like the contact of 2 chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. The structure and dynamics of the psyche. Humans and the universe, when they meet through technology, produce a similar reaction. Not to turn the universe into something human, but to make humans more realistic. Risk management when the ego stops wanting to conquer. There is a common misunderstanding about space technology. People often believe that the farther humans travel, the bolder technology becomes, the more it expresses a will to conquer. The truth moves in the opposite direction. The farther we go from Earth, the more cautious technology becomes. Not because humans grow more afraid, but because they understand their limits more clearly. At a deep psychological level, space travel is not a story of bravery. It is a story of conscious anxiety management. Carl Gustav Jung wrote, neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. Collected Works, Volume 16. When humans do not accept their true fragility, anxiety seeks other outlets, illusions of power, overconfidence, or the belief that everything can be controlled. Space technology in this sense is the expression of an ego that has stopped deceiving itself. Extreme procedures, rituals that soothe the ego, every space. Mission is surrounded by thousands of checklists, not once, but repeated. by different teams, at different times. A bolt is checked again, and independently verified. From the outside, this can appear obsessive, but from a Jungian perspective, it is a psychological ritual. Jung spoke of the role of ritual. Rituals are a way of ensuring that the psyche does not get lost in chaos. Collected works thematic, consistent with Jung's writings. Checklists are not only about preventing accidents, they prevent the ego from carrying fear alone. When everything is broken down, placed into systems, anxiety is no longer a vague mass. It is named, measured, and distributed. And that is what the human mind needs before it can rest. Risk control is not world control. One crucial distinction must be understood. Managing risk is not controlling outcomes. No procedure guarantees 100%. No system is absolutely immune. Space technology does not promise you will be safe. It only says we have done everything reasonable. And it is precisely this limit that softens the mind. Carl Jung wrote, "The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. Modern man in search of a soul. When the ego accepts that not everything can be solved, it does not collapse. It relaxes. Sleep operates in the same way. You do not fall asleep by controlling every thought. You sleep when you accept that some thoughts may pass without needing a response." Technology and the mature ego. In Jungian psychology, a mature ego is not the strongest ego. It is the ego that knows where it belongs. Space forces humans to learn this quickly. There is no room for pride, no room for, "I think that's enough." Only "let's check once more." Jung wrote, "True authority is not based on power, but on insight, psychological reflections." Space technology does not command the universe. It listens, adjusts, and avoids what cannot be confronted directly. This represents a deep shift in the structure of the modern ego. And this explains why many astronauts say that after long missions, they become calmer in everyday life. Not because they have fewer problems, but because they magnify problems less. Risk management is a lullaby for the mind. If you listen closely, the entire system of space technology resembles a steady whisper. We've thought of that. There is a backup. If this happens, there is a next step. For the human mind, these are deeply sleep-inducing phrases, because most anxiety does not come from danger, but from the feeling of having no plan. Jung wrote, "Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom, the undiscovered self. When freedom is too vast, when possibilities are too many, the mind spins. Risk management does not shrink the world. It narrows anxiety to a range that can be endured. And when that range narrows, the ego no longer needs to stay awake on guard. When technology becomes an embrace that prevents consciousness from falling. At the deepest level, what space technology truly accomplishes is not taking humans beyond Earth. It keeps human consciousness from disintegrating when placed in an environment far beyond its natural evolutionary capacity. Space is not only a physical challenge, it is a psychologically hostile environment. No familiar anchors, no natural day-night rhythm, no sense of being held. Under these conditions, the ego can easily enter what Jung called psychic disorientation. Carl Gustav Jung wrote, "Man cannot stand a meaningless life." Collected Works, Volume 11. The universe in itself is entirely meaningless to the human psyche. No familiar symbols, no emotional feedback, no reassurance that everything will be okay. Therefore, technology must quietly perform one task: create a sense of order in a place where order was never meant for us. Systems as a night watchman for the mind. Astronauts rarely need to constantly think, is there still air? Is the pressure holding? Not because risk disappears, but because systems are thinking for them. Psychologically, this resembles lying down to sleep, knowing that the door is locked, the alarm is set, tomorrow has a plan. Sleep does not arrive because danger is gone. Sleep arrives because something else is keeping watch for you. Jung described this state as, "The ego is only one part of the psyche, and it is not meant to be in control of everything." Two essays on analytical psychology space technology in this sense is a structure that allows the ego to relinquish control without panic. Why the feeling of being held allows deep sleep when the ego must remain constantly vigilant. It does not allow consciousness to sink. Insomnia, at its deepest level, is not a bodily problem. It is a problem of psychological responsibility that has not been set down. Space technology teaches a gentle lesson. You do not need to keep everything running by yourself. The oxygen system operates. The temperature system regulates. The alarm system sounds only when truly necessary. The human mind responds by lowering its baseline vigilance. Jung called this state psychic containment. The psyche needs a container, just as the body needs a skin. Collected works, conceptual Jungian principle. When there is a psychological skin, consciousness no longer needs to stretch itself to stay protected. Bringing that feeling back to earth and into sleep, you do not need a spacecraft to experience this. Right now, as you listen to these words, you can borrow this structure for yourself. Notice, there is a surface supporting your body. There is breath happening without your control. The world outside continues to function without your supervision. Sleep does not ask you to perform better. It only asks you to stop acting as the gatekeeper for everything. Carl Jung once wrote a sentence perfect for closing this section. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Alchemical studies. Here, darkness is not fear. It is the recognition that you do not need to remain awake for the world to continue existing. Part 10. Mars, the Moon, and Life Beyond Earth. When humans no longer carry Earth with them, but must be reborn themselves. From the previous section, we have seen that humans do not conquer the universe. We merely learn how not to disintegrate within it. Technology has become a second skin. Systems have taken on part of the burden once carried by consciousness. And when life is temporarily stabilized, a deeper question begins to emerge. Not in the control room, but in the deeper layers of the soul. What if we stay, not for a few days, not for a few months, but forever? Mars, the symbol of a one-way journey in the human psyche. In every serious plan for Mars, there is a truth that is rarely spoken aloud. This may be a journey with no return. Technically, that may change. But psychologically, Mars has long become a symbol of severance. Carl Jung once wrote, "Where wisdom reigns, there is no conflict between thinking and feeling." Psychological types. To go to Mars, humans must reconcile an ancient conflict to remain in the familiar, or to step into something that has never existed within the ancestral map. In the collective unconscious, Mars is not merely a red planet. It is the archetype of a land without the mother. The air does not nourish. The soil does not cradle seeds. The sky does not protect. To go there is to accept leaving the primordial embrace of Earth, the embrace that millions of years of evolution have etched into the nervous system. Cities beneath the moon returning to the primordial cave. If Mars symbolizes a harsh future, the moon carries a different image, a return inward. It is no coincidence that every long-term plan for life on the moon speaks of underground cities, lava tubes, subsurface habitats. Technically, this is to avoid radiation and extreme temperatures. But symbolically, humans are doing something very ancient, returning to the depths of the Earth, Jung emphasized. The cave is the symbol of the unconscious. Symbols of transformation. Caves have always been places of gestation, protection, transformation. Living on the moon, humans no longer build homes beneath the sky. We shelter in intentional darkness. This is not regression. It is the wisdom of a species that knows its own fragility. Growing plants in space, a healing ritual of the soul in every space experiment. The act of growing plants is spoken of in a very particular tone, not only for oxygen, not only for food, but for psychology. A sprout emerging in a sterile environment is a symbol of healing. Carl Jung wrote, "The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct." Psychological types. Plants represent slow rhythm, unhurried life, and the sense that time still has meaning. When astronauts tend to plants, they are not only sustaining biological life, they are anchoring their souls to a familiar cycle in a place without seasons. Robots build first, a Jungian reversal of roles. One of the strangest images of the future is this: robots arrive first, humans arrive later. Machines endure radiation, machines dig the soil, machines raise the shelters. Humans come only after space has been tamed. Psychologically, this reflects a profound shift. The ego is no longer the pioneer. Jung warned modern man does not understand how much his rationalism has put him at the mercy of the psychic underworld, the undiscovered self. Here, robots are not merely tools. They are the unfeeling part that humans must borrow to protect the vulnerable core within. Not copying Earth, but restructuring ourselves. The message of this section is clear: there is no second Earth. Every attempt at replication, artificial blue skies, simulated greenery, manufactured sunlight, is only a temporary psychological bridge. Life beyond Earth demands something deeper. Humans must change the way they are human. Carl Jung wrote plainly, "We cannot change anything until we accept it." Modern man, in search of a soul, accepting that we are no longer at home, we are no longer held by a biosphere. We are living by intelligence, not instinct. Only then does consciousness stop resisting, and only then can sleep arrive. A gentle transition time and evolution. When humans live long enough beyond Earth, it is not only the environment that changes. Time will change. The body will change. Identity will change. In Part 11, we will approach the deepest question of all. When humans no longer share the same gravity, are we still the same species? But for now, you do not need to carry that question into sleep. It is enough to know this: you are lying on a planet that has taken billions of years to become perfectly suited to every breath you take. Part 11. Time, Evolution, and Future Humanity. When the universe does not only change where we live, but who we are. From the previous section, we stand before a very quiet threshold. Humans are no longer merely visiting the universe. We are beginning to stay. And when a living being remains long enough in an unfamiliar environment, the first thing that changes is not housing, not technology, but the inner rhythm of time. Carl Jung once wrote a sentence that seems simple yet grows deeper the more slowly it is read. Man is not born twice, but he must be reborn psychologically. The archetypes and the collective unconscious space is precisely the catalyst for such a rebirth. Not loudly, not explosively, but quietly, one beat at a time. When time no longer flows as it once did. On Earth, time is felt through light, dawn, dusk, seasons arriving and departing. Human biological rhythm is woven from these cycles, but beyond Earth time no longer clings to the sun in familiar ways. An astronaut in orbit may witness 16 sunrises and sunsets in a single Earth day. Day is no longer day. Night is no longer night. And deeper still, according to relativity, time truly flows differently. Slower, stretched, out of phase. This is not only physics, it is a touch upon the unconscious. Jung once said, "Time is not a thing, it is a concept. Memories, dreams, reflections. When the concept of time changes, consciousness must change with it. There is no longer hurry, no longer late, only extended presence." That is why many describe space as both frightening and deeply sleep-inducing. Biology, under altered gravity, the body rewrites itself. The Human body is a manuscript written under one gravity. Bones are built to bear weight. Muscles are woven to resist downward pull. The heart is trained to pump blood upward. When gravity changes, the old biological narrative loses its logic. Bones thin, muscles shrink, the spine lengthens. Not because the body is weak, but because it adapts. Jung saw evolution not only as biological, but as symbolic. Life always seeks new forms, symbols of transformation. If a generation were born beyond Earth, their bodies would not be deformed. They would be suited to where they belong. And here a very deep question emerges, not for science, but for psychology. If the body changes, does identity remain the same? Children born beyond Earth, a new archetype. In Jungian psychology, every major historical epoch gives rise to a new human archetype. The hunter, the farmer, the industrial worker, the modern individual. A child born on Mars would carry an entirely different archetype. A red sky, weaker gravity, longer days, years twice as long. Their consciousness would hold no bodily memory of oceans, of forests, of rain on skin. Jung warned, the greatest danger to the future of mankind is not technology, but unconsciousness, the undiscovered self. The question is not, can we give birth beyond Earth? But rather, do we have enough awareness to understand how profoundly this will transform humanity, human identity, from earthling to cosmic being? Identity 4. Jung is not a passport or a genome. Identity is the story the unconscious tells consciousness about where one belongs. When humans leave Earth long enough, that story begins to fracture. There is no longer a homeland in the physical sense. Only memory, imagery, and myth. Jung wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." Psychological types. Future humanity may need to look inward more than ever before, because the outer world will no longer grant a sense of belonging, and this perhaps is the deepest evolutionary step of all, a gentle transition toward the ending returning to Earth, within awareness. As you listen to this, you do not need to carry concern for the future of humanity. This is not a warning, nor a prophecy, only a whisper. The universe does not merely make humans small, it makes us more aware of who we are. And right now you are lying on a planet where time still flows slowly enough for sleep to arrive naturally. If you wish, the next section will be Part 12, Fragility and the Beauty of Home, where all reflection softens and you may let yourself fully drift into sleep. Part 12, Conclusion, Fragility and the Beauty of Home, when the vast universe makes Earth feel strangely gentle. After all the imagined journeys, after reflections on stretched time, on bodies that may evolve differently, on generations of humans who may never touch damp soil or feel rain on skin, we return to something very simple: Earth. Not as a planet in a textbook, but as a psychological home. Carl Jung once wrote quietly, "The least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it." Modern man in search of a soul, the universe may be magnificent, but Earth has meaning. Liquid water, ordinary yet almost non-existent across all. The space humanity has observed freely flowing liquid water is almost impossibly rare. On Mars, water is frozen memory. On the Moon, water hides in eternal shadow. In the universe, water usually exists only as vapor or ice. Only here does water fall on skin without technology. Only here can you close your eyes and listen to rain without wearing protective gear. Jung saw water as the most ancient symbol of the unconscious. Water is the commonest symbol for the unconscious, the archetypes and the collective unconscious. Perhaps that is why simply hearing water allows the mind to soften on its own. Air what holds us, without asking to be noticed. Outside, Earth air is an engineered product, measured, filtered, calculated, molecule by molecule. But here, air touches you without demanding attention. You do not need to think about breathing. You do not need to monitor oxygen. You do not need to worry about pressure. Air is like an invisible embrace that we only notice when it is gone. Jung once said, "What we do not consciously value appears to us as fate." Collected works. Perhaps Earth is something we have loved so quietly that we forgot we are being supported every second. Gravity, the gentle pull that lets the mind rest. In space, gravity must be simulated. Inside spacecraft, humans strap themselves to walls to sleep. Here, you only need to lie down. Gravity does one very quiet thing. It tells the body you are being held. In depth psychology, the feeling of being held is the first condition for letting go of control. It is no accident that newborns sleep best when they are gently wrapped. Earth has done this for humanity for millions of years. Earth is not perfect, and that is why it is home. Earth has storms, earthquakes, loss. But this very imperfection creates a rhythm that can be felt and anticipated. Jung did not seek absolute safety. He sought fit. The shoe that fits one person pinches another. Psychological reflections. Earth is not perfectly safe, but it fits humans. And perhaps home is not the absence of risk, but the place where risk can be held. Preparing for the final lullaby. As you listen now, you do not need to remember any facts. You do not need to carry Mars. You do not need to carry dilated time. You do not need to carry the future of humanity. Just feel this. There is a planet turning very steadily. There is a pull holding your body. There is an atmosphere softening every sharp edge of the universe. Carl Jung once wrote, "In the last analysis, the essential thing is the life of the individual, memories, dreams, reflections. And right now, the most essential thing is your sleep." Part 13. The final lullaby. Returning to sleep. Needing to remember when knowledge can be set down. At this point in the story, you do not need to carry any information with you. No radiation, no Mars, no time dilation. The human mind often believes that if it does not hold on to something, it will lose it. But Jung saw it differently. The intellect cannot live by itself. It needs the nourishment of feeling. Psychological type's knowledge was not created to be carried into sleep. It was created to be set down when it is no longer needed. Like shoes removed before lying on a bed. Not because the shoes are bad, but because the bed is not a place for walking further. Not needing to understand everything when the unconscious already understands enough. There is a very gentle truth: you do not need to understand everything to be safe. Along this journey, there may be parts you do not remember clearly. Ideas you only half heard. Images that drifted through without staying. That is not a failure of consciousness. It is a sign that the unconscious has begun its work. Jung emphasized, the unconscious knows more than consciousness thinks. Collected works. When you listen before sleep, consciousness no longer stands at the center. It steps back, allowing deeper layers to receive rhythm, sensation, voice. And the unconscious does not need concepts. It needs only order and steadiness. Fragile order, but enough for you to rest. Part 13 does not end with a great truth. It ends with a very small feeling. There is an order. That order is not absolute, but it is stable enough for rest. The universe does not promise to protect you forever. Earth does not promise there will never be upheaval. But tonight everything is in its place. Jung once wrote, "Order is not enough. Life also needs chaos." Psychological reflections. And yet he knew humans can only sleep when chaos is temporarily left outside the door. And right now this fragile order is doing exactly what it needs to do. Fragile order and the embrace of the unconscious. When you do not need to stay awake to be safe. There is something curious about being human. We truly rest only when we believe something is holding us. Not tightly, not controlling, just present. Like falling asleep on a chair knowing there is a floor beneath. Like floating in water knowing the water will carry you. This feeling of being held does not come from strength, it comes from regularity. Carl Jung wrote, "The psyche needs orientation just as the body needs gravity." Collected Works. The fragile order of the universe is that kind of psychological gravity. Not perfect, not eternal, but enough to keep the mind from falling freely. The universe does not care for you, but it does not push you either. One of the deepest human fears is the sense that if we let go, everything will collapse. But the universe does not work that way. Planets turn without human supervision. Stars burn without reminders. Earth rotates steadily whether you are awake or asleep. Jung wrote, "Nature is not matter only. She is also spirit." Collected Works, not in a mystical sense, but in this one there is an order that does not depend on the ego. And when you realize that the ego can rest, sleep is not falling into nothingness. It is being placed into a current that existed long before you. The embrace of the unconscious, where understanding is not required. In Jungian psychology, the unconscious is not chaos. It is older wisdom than consciousness. Jung wrote, "The unconscious is not merely evil by nature. It is also the source of the highest good, the archetypes and the collective unconscious." When you sleep, you are not surrendering to darkness. You are entrusting yourself to a system that has been functioning since before you knew how to speak. The heart keeps beating. The lungs keep breathing. The body regulates temperature, rhythm, healing. You do not need to understand these processes for them to work. Just as you do not need to understand how planets hold their orbits in order to live on Earth. Letting go of control is not losing yourself. Another common fear: if I let go of control, I will disappear. But Jung saw it differently. The ego is not the whole of the personality, but only its center. 2 essays on analytical psychology. Letting go of control is not losing the center. It is allowing the center to stop straining. Sleep does not erase you. It places you in a state where self-assertion is no longer required. No name, no role, no story. Only a very soft presence. Fragile. Order Enough for Tonight Part 13 does not promise that everything will always be fine. It whispers only this: tonight is fine. Tonight, Earth is rotating at the right speed. The atmosphere is thick enough. Gravity is gentle enough. Tonight you do not need to do anything more to deserve rest. Carl Jung once wrote, "We cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning. The stages of life night is the late afternoon of a day. It requires no achievement, only closure. Dissolving into sleep when no more words are needed. If you can still hear this voice, that is okay. No need to force sleep. No need to relax faster. Sleep does not come when summoned. It comes when no one is standing guard at the door. Everything necessary has already been said. Everything unnecessary can be left behind. No remembering, no understanding, no carrying forward." Carl Jung once wrote gently, like a farewell: "There is no coming to consciousness without pain, psychology and alchemy." But he also knew that after every opening of consciousness, a gentle closing is needed. Sleep is that closing. Perhaps thoughts are still drifting, fragments of today still moving. No need to chase them away. Let them pass like distant clouds, without names, without clear shapes. You do not need to follow them. You do not need to finish them. Just know this: beneath all movement there is a steady rhythm continuing. Earth is still turning. The universe is still silent. Your body still knows how to breathe. Jung said, "The unconscious is the mother of consciousness." Collected Works. And like any mother, it does not need you to stay awake to continue caring. If your body feels heavier, that is not fatigue. That is gravity doing its work. If your eyelids sink, that is not loss of control. That is consciousness being allowed to withdraw. You are not falling. You are being placed down, like a seed laid into warm soil, not to disappear but to rest. Jung wrote, "In the last analysis, the essential thing is the life of the individual, memories, dreams, reflections. And at night, the most essential act of life is sleep. There is no final message, no instruction, only one very small truth, enough for the mind to release its tension. In infinite space, you are lying on a planet that knows how to hold life. Amid all uncertainty, tonight is unfolding exactly as billions of nights before it. And right now, you do not need to be anyone. Not the one who understands, not the one who searches, not the one who thinks, only a living being held. If sleep has already come, let it come. If it has not, that is also fine. There is nothing to achieve, nothing to complete. The story has arrived at the place where it no longer needs to continue. Part 14. Absolute silence. The universe does not answer. The universe does not answer. And this is not cruelty. Throughout human history, we have grown accustomed to one thing. When we call, someone usually answers. We call our mother. We call a lover. We call a community. We call the divine. A call always carries an expectation. Someone is listening, but the universe is different. You can send a radio signal into deep space. It will travel for light years. No reply, no confirmation, no rejection. Not because the universe is indifferent in a moral sense, but because there is no position from which it could reply. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "The universe is not hostile, nor yet is it friendly. It is simply indifferent." Collected Works, Volume 10. This sentence is not pessimistic. It is liberating. Because when you stop waiting for an answer from outside, the mind begins to soften. Space has no intention, and this is a very gentle truth. Human beings live in a world of intentions. Someone hurts us, there must be a reason. Someone loves us, there is purpose. An event happens, it must carry a message. But space does not function this way. A star explodes not to warn. A planet dies not to punish. A signal disappears into emptiness not because it was rejected. Jung warned of this habit of the mind. Man has an ineradicable tendency to project the unconscious contents of his psyche upon the surrounding world. The archetypes and the collective unconscious, we project meaning onto silence because silence is too vast for the ego to endure. Yet when silence does not respond, it confronts us with a new possibility. Perhaps not everything revolves around us. And paradoxically, this is deeply soothing before sleep. When prayer has no echo, in space, there is no up or down. No direction is inherently more sacred than another. A prayer, if spoken, does not rise anywhere. It simply dissolves into emptiness. This can feel terrifying to an ego accustomed to confirmation. But Jung saw in this a profound opportunity for psychological maturity. He wrote, "A faith that does not doubt is dead." Psychology and religion. When there is no echo, faith no longer depends on response. It becomes an inner state, not a transaction. For sleep, this matters deeply. Insomnia often arises because the mind keeps waiting for a signal, reassurance that everything is okay, a guarantee, a final answer. Space teaches the opposite. The absence of an answer can still be safe. Silence is not abandonment. This is the core of Part 14. The silence of the universe is not moral, not good, not evil, and therefore it does not judge. Jung wrote, "The unconscious does not think in moral categories." Collected Works. When you lie still at night and nothing responds to your worries, it does not mean you have been abandoned. Perhaps you are simply in a space large enough that anxiety is no longer fed by reaction. There is an ancient reflex in the human psyche. When faced with silence, we fill it with stories, with hypotheses, with gods, with fate, with explanations. Not because we are weak, but because consciousness evolved to orient itself, not to float in infinite emptiness. Jung wrote, "The human mind has a natural tendency to create myths. Psychology and religion myths are not failures of intelligence. They are mechanisms of psychological survival. When the universe says nothing, humans begin to speak for it. Cosmic silence and the ego's deepest anxiety. The ego does. not fear darkness. It fears not knowing its place in the larger picture. When the universe does not respond, a quiet question arises. If no one answers, does my existence still matter? Jung called this the anxiety of meaninglessness. Meaninglessness inhibits fullness of life and is therefore equivalent to illness. Modern man in search of a soul. This is why humans cannot tolerate absolute silence. We must assign meaning to it, positive or negative. But before sleep, this constant meaning-making is exactly what keeps the mind awake. When signals go unanswered, a lesson in limits. For decades, humans have sent signals into space. Number sequences, music, greetings. They drift, unanswered. Not because no one received them, but because space has no obligation to reply. Jung warned of this illusion. Man always tries to interpret the unknown in terms of what he already knows. Collected works. We live in a social world where silence usually means rejection, indifference, punishment. But the universe is not a social subject. It does not reject. It does not approve. It does not evaluate. When this is truly absorbed, the mind begins to stop interpreting. Silence as a neutral space where the mind can rest in. Jungian psychology, neutrality is not coldness. Neutrality does not activate inner conflict. Jung wrote, "The psyche reacts instinctively to meaning. Where there is none, it creates it." Collected works. But if you allow a moment without meaning, the mind no longer has to work. No decoding, no guessing, no placing yourself at the center. Cosmic silence, seen correctly, is not a threatening void. It is an empty space where consciousness can lay down its questions. Letting go of the need for answers, the step before sleep. Insomnia is often tied to an unclosed question. Why did this happen? Did I do something wrong? Where is all of this going? These questions are not wrong, not weak, but nighttime is not when they are meant to be answered. Jung wrote plainly, "There are questions which man must put, but which he cannot answer." Psychology and religion. When we learn not to bring these questions into bed, sleep begins to appear. Not because the questions vanish, but because they are placed where they belong. The universe does not respond, and this is a healthy boundary. A healthy boundary is one that lets us stop trying to cross it. The universe does not respond, and finally humans can stop calling. Not in despair, but because exhaustion has been allowed to end. Jung wrote, "The acceptance of oneself is the essence of the whole moral problem." The archetypes and the collective unconscious. Accepting that not every question has an echo, not every silence carries a message, not every night needs meaning, is a profound act of psychological self-care. Silence as the final embrace. When silence no longer asks a question, there is a rare moment in inner life when the mind no longer asks, "What does this mean?" A moment when we stop trying to understand the universe and no longer need the universe to understand us. Jung called this reconciliation with not knowing. Wisdom accepts that we do not know. Collected works. This is not surrender. It is laying down the weapons of the mind. When silence stops threatening the ego. By day, silence often makes the ego contract. It wants response, validation, proof that it is seen. But when night falls, when light softens, when the body grows tired, the ego no longer has the energy to defend itself through thought. And in that moment, silence changes shape. It becomes a space where no one asks you to be anyone. Jung wrote, "The ego is only the center of consciousness, not the center of the whole psyche." Aeon. In the absolute silence of the universe, the ego no longer needs to stand at the center. And strangely, when the ego steps back, a sense of safety emerges. Not being seen as a form of rest, we are tired not only from doing. We are tired from being seen by others, by society, by ourselves. The silence of the universe offers a rare experience, no gaze at all, no evaluation, no expectation, no disappointment. The universe does not care. And for the first time, this feels relieving. Jung wrote, "Where love reigns, there is no will to power." Collected works, absolute silence, is where the will to control dissolves. No proving, no improving, no becoming. Silence as an invisible maternal presence. In depth, psychology Jung often spoke of the archetype of the Great Mother, not only the one who gives birth, but the one who contains, holds, and does not judge. Strangely, the universe, seemingly the coldest thing, shares these qualities. It does not speak. It does not interfere. It does not demand. It is simply present. And this unconditional presence allows the human nervous system to finally relax. Jung wrote, "The mother archetype is associated with things and places standing for fertility and fruitfulness. The archetypes and the collective unconscious. Here, fertility is not action, but the capacity to allow rest. Before sleep, consciousness needs a place to set things down. You cannot sleep when consciousness is holding too much. Unanswered questions, unsettled memories, incomplete plans. The absolute silence of the universe acts like a vast surface wide enough for you to set everything down without fear of losing it. No one will take it. No one will answer wrongly. No one will ask you to continue." Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Alchemical studies. But before sleep, you do not need to do anything with the darkness. You only need to lie still within it. When understanding is no longer required, sleep begins. Sleep does not arrive when you understand enough. Sleep arrives when you no longer need to understand. When the mind stops grasping. When the story pauses. When the ego allows itself to shrink. In the unresponsive silence of the universe, you are not abandoned. You are returned to your correct scale, a small being supported by an order that does not need explanation. And in that moment, silence is no longer emptiness. It is the final embrace of the night. Part 15. The astronauts sleep, sleeping among the pros. Stars. In space, astronauts do not lie down. They float. There is no bed in the familiar sense. No fixed direction for the body to rest against. Only a sleeping bag gently tethered to the wall of the spacecraft, and a body learning to let go while suspended. For the human mind, this is no small thing. For hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, sleep has been tied to the ground, to certainty, to gravity, to being supported from below. Jung wrote, "The human psyche is adapted to the conditions of earthly existence." The symbolic life. When an astronaut sleeps among the stars, they are not only far from Earth in space, but far from the original psychological context in which sleep first formed. Here, sleep becomes a designed act, no longer a purely instinctive one. Artificial day-night rhythms and the fragility of consciousness. On the International Space Station, the sun can rise and set more than 10 times a day. Without clocks, without artificial lighting, human consciousness would gradually lose orientation. Sleep must be scheduled. Lights are turned on and off like ritual. Melatonin no longer listens to the sky, but to a switch. This raises a deeply Jungian question. How much does human consciousness depend on the universe, and how much is constructed by ourselves? Jung wrote, "Consciousness needs the rhythm of day and night as much as the body does." Collected works. When natural rhythm is replaced by artificial rhythm, sleep is no longer a dissolution into the unconscious, but a negotiation. Sleeping in isolation, when the unconscious becomes clearer. Space is a place of radical isolation. Few people, few natural sounds, few stimuli. Under these conditions, dreams often become more vivid, emotions more pronounced. Jung believed that when the outer world becomes impoverished, the unconscious compensates. The unconscious compensates the one-sidedness of consciousness. Psychological types. For astronauts, sleep is not only rest, but a doorway through which the psyche rebalances itself. Dreams of Earth appear frequently damp soil, trees, flowing water, wind. Not from nostalgia, but because the unconscious knows what is missing. Reflecting back your sleep on Earth. And now, gently the 12. Story returns to you. You are not floating. Gravity is holding every cell of your body. You do not need straps to keep from drifting away. You do not need artificial light to tell you night has arrived. Your sleep is not a technical system. It is a biological privilege granted by a rare planet. Jung wrote, "Man belongs not only to the earth, but also to the cosmos. Modern man in search of a soul. But only on earth can humans sleep without thinking about air pressure or radiation. Sleep as an act of absolute trust. Sleep in the end is an act of trust. Trust that when consciousness lets go, the world remains safe enough. Trust that you do not need to stand guard. Trust that a larger order is holding everything. In space, this trust must be replaced by machines. On Earth, it is given freely every night. And perhaps this is the final reminder of the journey through space. Sleep is not a given. It is a delicate gift of a planet that knows how to hold life. At this point, you do not need to remember anything else. Let consciousness soften. Let the body grow heavy. Allow sleep to arrive as Earth has allowed you to exist from the beginning. In a vast and silent universe, you are in the one place where sleep is possible. And tonight, that is enough. After everything we have passed through, you may notice something subtle happening now. Not excitement, not new knowledge, but a deep settling. The universe does not overwhelm us with answers. It calms us with its silence. We imagined leaving Earth, passing through places without air, without gravity, without life. Seeing how fragile the human body becomes when placed in an environment not meant for it. We understood that to survive out there, we must carry a miniature Earth with us and trust absolutely in machines, procedures, and precision. Yet only by going so far do we begin to see Earth clearly. Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Alchemical studies. The universe in its absolute darkness is not meant to illuminate us with light, but to reflect what we had grown so used to that we forgot. That air is a miracle. That liquid water is rare. That gravity once complained about is the invisible hand keeping us tied to life. That sleep is not a simple biological function, but a special condition of a special planet. Out there, sleep must be engineered, tethered, regulated by light-time circadian rhythm. Here, you only need to lie down. No suit, no pressure checks, no air filters for each breath, only letting go. Jung believed humans do not truly need to control everything to be safe. What we need more deeply is the feeling of belonging to a larger order. The unconscious is not just evil by nature, it is also the source of the highest good, the structure and dynamics of the psyche. The universe has no good or evil. It does not care. And precisely because of this, it allows humans to project meaning into it. And in this journey, the greatest meaning is not conquering space, but realizing this: we already have a place to belong. Earth is not perfect, but it fits. Enough atmosphere, enough warmth, enough water, enough darkness to sleep, and enough light to wake. Your sleep tonight does not need to be anything special. You do not need to understand everything you heard. You do not need to remember concepts. You do not need to hold on to images. Jung emphasized, understanding is not always the prerequisite for psychological healing. Sometimes being allowed to relax is enough. If your thoughts are slowing now, if images are softening, if the body feels slightly heavier, this is not distraction. It is the mind doing what it was designed to do when night arrives. Out there, among billions of stars, ships move silently, signals drift without reply, and planets exist that will never know sleep. And you are here, on a planet that knows how to hold life, on a surface soft enough for rest, in an atmosphere that does not ask permission to breathe. And perhaps this is the most beautiful thing the universe has allowed. Now there is nothing more you need to do. Let the breath find its depth again. Let consciousness withdraw like a tide at night. Let sleep arrive not as a goal, but as a return. Sleep well, sleep deeply, sleep peacefully. In the vast universe tonight, you are home.